The Asian market for 20 years.
Yeah.
Do you see a shift from the usual lagers and pilsners towards root beer nowadays?
Yes.
How significant is that change now?
It's very significant in the sense that again, the younger generation wants to experience something that their fathers have not always been drinking or consuming, or their parents, so to speak. And again, it is very important to note that I think also the quality aspect and the price aspect is very important. I think Asians like to be seen with something that stands for value and lifestyle, and something that that they can appreciate and show to their friends and like to be seen with.
But was it difficult in the beginning because this is a completely new beer? People didn't know what kind of beer this was.
People didn't know what kind of beer we were selling. They knew Germany all right. They knew what Germany was all about in their respect, but they didn't appreciate a very high-priced product compared to the local lagers. And that in the beginning was a very slow growth. But that also in line goes with what the company philosophy and the philosophy of the owner of the brewery, Mr. Broner. He likes to rather grow slowly rather than too fast. And that's exactly what we have experienced in all the markets.
And you know, as a privately owned brewery, I mean, we are not one of the global players. So the investment that we can put into a new market is kind of limited.
Yeah. Also, it is more and more common nowadays that even the breweries that had been investing very much in the past, they see they can't do this anymore because the pressure of investing ever so more has become just too much. And nowadays, even bar owners and restaurant owners, hotel companies, they tend to want to sell something which is unique and high in quality rather than just price-wise. And interesting enough, even in markets which are very price-driven, like for instance India or China, you find that shift taking place right now. Singapore was probably a bit earlier, and now we see that shift actually taking place in China.
Towards a more premium product.
More premium, more sophisticated. They also, in terms of the world changing in terms of information, now it's much more easy to access information through the internet. People tend to find out more about the product they're consuming, be it beverages or be it other products.
In terms of the whole wheat beer market itself, the niche itself, how big is Erdinger? How many percent do you guys have?
In Asia?
I mean, I know not just in Asia, globally.
Globally?
Yeah.
Erdinger is the market leader in terms of
how many percent?
Weiss beers. So we have from the German market, in terms of wheat beer, we have about 25%.
25%. That's a lot. That's a wheat beer.
In German, 25%. In Germany.
But the wheat beer, the share of wheat beer within all the beers is smaller.
Yeah, it's small.
Yeah.
So in Asia, I mean, among wheat beers, where do you stand? Okay, let's see.
Among wheat beers, I think it's a clear answer that we are number one.
Yeah, absolutely, market leader. We have been not only in Germany in the 80s and 90s, but or rather in the 80s, pioneers for the wheat beer market, but also actually in Asia nowadays.
Is it safe to say that the closest one would be Polana?
I think the closest one in international brands would be probably a variety of beers. I don't think there's a clear number two. I think there's a couple of number twos.
Yeah, there is. It varies from country to country.
Correct.
So it's. I would not say that it's always Polana. Sometimes it's Hoegaarden. Hoegaarden, which is not really 100%
I think number
wheat
one
beer.
is probably Hoegaarden in Malaysia right now.
Pardon me?
Malaysia, I think. Malaysia is probably Hoegaarden.
Yeah, I think, yeah. This is why I'm mentioning this.
Yeah.
How about German beers? German wheat beers as well? How about only just German within the German market, the German companies, the German brands?
Within the German, Erdinger is the number one.
Yeah,
Yes,
clear number one.
Yeah, very clear. Yeah, yeah.
So is it how did Erdinger get to that spot? I mean, compared to the larger breweries, the brewers in the larger cities. I mean, I'm not talking about larger breweries. Larger city, the ones that tend to be more populated and all. How did a smaller brewery in a town called Erding become number one in wheat beer?
Nationally?
Nationally and internationally.
You know, it's from the history. Erdinger was one of the first wheat beer breweries that went out of Bavaria. I mean, wheat beer is a typical Bavarian product, and like 25, 30 years ago, it was only known in Bavaria. Now, I mean, you know, there's a limited market, and when you are trying to grow, then you have to think of where to go. And of course, it's the closest to spread out in Germany. So we went we put our focus on Baden-Württemberg, which is the western part of Germany, and then we went up north, and we were the first to nationally advertise and promote wheat beer.
When was this?
In radio, in TV, in billboard campaigns and so on. Well, that started around 85.
Okay.
This is also when we built the new brewery.
Yeah. So before that, the Germans didn't. Other Germans outside of Bavaria didn't drink beer.
Very little. Very little.
So you build capacity. So then, with the capacity, you have to go and expand your market.
Yeah. I mean, the wheat beer market was growing. We could feel the trend that the market was ready, because you know, in Germany we have a very specific market situation, because we have 1,200 breweries. So almost every little town has its own brewery. And well, years ago, when we around the 80s, almost none of the breweries was producing wheat beer. But when they recognized the trend, of course, they jumped on that train, and now almost every brewery is doing kind of a wheat beer. And this is why we also lost market share here in Bavaria. So we had to expand. So then first we went national within Germany, and then we went international.
Besides you guys, are there any more breweries that actually just do wheat beers? I know Schneider Weiss.
Schneider. Schneider. Not really. I mean,
it's probably the only one.
Most of the breweries, they do more brands, you know, different beers. Yeah.
Actually, I'm the outside looking in. Okay, to answer your question, why Erdinger is so successful, actually it's the people itself, because they are very close-knit. As you can see from their interactions, they're very close-knit, family-like company, even though they grow. So even in different regions, you know.
Because it's a privately owned family company.
And it's a big, nice, big family, and they keep it in a passion of the
So
brand.
this is our house, we can come here.
Yeah. And even translate to the importers. Even the importers feel, as you can see, they're all one big family.
Yeah,
and we have
it's a very close relationship.
Yeah, and that you don't find in many other corporations now.
So speaking of the company, how much has changed since you've been around 125 years? How much has changed since the first time you started going commercial?
Since the first time
you started commercializing your beers and started selling it outside Bavaria.
I mean, I would say the world has changed within all those years completely, because first of all, there is a lot of competition in Germany. You can imagine, among all these many breweries, we have the phenomena that they reduce the prices, so which is of course destructive to the breweries, that they cannot, you know, earn enough money. Second, the beer consumption has declined a lot.
Really?
Has dropped. Yeah. So we came from 135 liters per capita, going down to 109, 110.
Why is it changing to?
First of all, drinking and driving.
Oh.
Then we have the smoking ban. So, you know, it's all very negative for the consumption. And then, of course, economical crisis. You know, we when the East opened, so all those countries came to be part of Germany. So every single person had to contribute. And then we had the economic crisis, and people tended to go out less. And then, as I said, it's you know, with drinking and driving, so they reduced the tolerance from 0.8 to 0.5, and the 0.5 is already a problem. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then when the smoking ban came, it was, of course, particularly difficult.
So it wasn't the fact that that people were drinking something else. It's just that people just didn't want to go out anymore to drink.
Yeah, I mean the trend. Of course, there's a lot of competition. Also, you know, there were lots of alcopops. Then energy drinks came, and all these fancy drinks, and then hard liquor, where you know, young people. So we are trying to gain them back to non-alcoholic, and then maybe beer, but not hard liquor.
Yeah. And also, I think if you look at the general beer consumption, I think the majority of beer consumption obviously is being consumed with lager beers still. And lager beer breweries, which tend to be talking about, I mean, mainstream, doing a lot of volume, they always took it for granted that their product is being consumed, that consumers will like their product, and they didn't feel the need to do much for the category beer as such. And that was way before those international conglomerates which started pushing wines, pushing alcopops and all that, which ate into the market, the core market of the lager breweries. You know. And we, on the other hand, with wheat beer, we were hardly affected as badly in terms of our own consumption. We managed to do steady growth rather than decline.
So the wheat beer segment is still slightly growing. Yeah. It's against the trend.
Yeah.
Correct.
But then, you see, your growth, eventually, if you want to have a larger growth, it will all depend on the pricing. Now the premium between, you see, here you don't find the premium between the lager and the wheat beer, but back home there is a premium between the
this is easily at least $10
lager and the wheat beer. There is a premium back home. I think that's because of scarcity.
You see, that's exactly where
tax structure,
where you have a different turning point, and if you have to decide on which way to go forward, to keep a product, a value product, and to keep brewing a quality product, the price has to be right.
Yes.
We could actually gain market share if we would, you know, try to engage in a price war or even lower our price. But in the long term, that will be detrimental to growing healthily. That's the problem. So even to answer your question, a short-term gain, we rather forego for a long term.
So you don't see the premium between lager and wheat beer narrowing in future?
Because we will never be mainstream. We will always be specialty. We will always be very focused.
Lager will always be there.
On our We'll always be focused on our.
And there will be a difference.
There must be a difference.
I mean, there is a difference, and there will be a difference. So and you know, we are not trying to become a mass product. We are really want to keep our specialty level at a certain price. And this is why we are also trying to focus more on the on-trade, not so much in the off-trade, because you know, brand building takes place in the on-trade. So once, of course, you need the off-trade to do some volume, but our focus abroad in foreign countries is to go to build up and set up some on-trade business before we go to the off-trade.
And what is your sales performance last year in Asia? And contribute how much to your company, the sales?
In terms of percentage, you mean, or?
Yes.
Well, that's difficult to say. because you know we have like 80 countries, 80 export countries that form
the export.
the export.
And you said that Asia is the second biggest market, right?
Yes, yes,
And
correct.
contribute how many percent to the sales in a company?
I would say this is, you know, relatively small
Compared to Germany,
if we put it in percentage.
Yeah.
But if we put it in relative figures, I would say it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's very good. It's going very well.
Because I mean here, 80% of our,
So you got a large
our
base.
market is Germany, including the big segment of non-alcoholic. So you know, it's not a question of black and white. So if we exclude like the non-alcoholic, because we have not even touched to promote and to focus on non-alcoholic in foreign markets. So if we take this away, of course the export share is bigger. In absolute, the export share is smaller. So
Let's talk about the Erdinger Fest, the Hub Fest. How did it come about, the festival?
I mean, the festival
Yeah.
originally it dates back. Which was
75 years ago.
75, huh?
Yeah.
Or
75
76?
years
Yeah,
ago.
75 years
so.
ago. This was
75.
like a small exhibition for farmers' machinery. This is how it started.
Even
And then
before it was called Erdinger Fest or Erb Fest.
it was
more like Autumn Festival.
It was more, yeah, exactly. And it was, you know, when all the farmers, when the harvest was in, and then towards the end of the summer, then they gathered and they were looking at new machinery for the next year and so on. And this is how it all started. And then, you know, they slowly developed it into a more public festival. And yeah, ever since it has been on this territory and has been developed.
Yeah.
Has Erdinger always been part of it?
Yeah. Yes,
It's always
always.
been fun.
I have seen on the internet there is a picture of 1928 where it's a wooden hut, very small, and it says Erdinger and then Weißbräu something. And then you know all the men, mainly men, are sitting there enjoying the beer.
Right, so on a much smaller scale.
28.
28.
Yes.
So the original intention, which was to become an
Yeah.
exhibit, is it still there?
No.
No. Beer has clearly taken over.
Yeah. People want to celebrate, you know.
You see some other machinery though. You see very much, you know, those fun fair machines. That still has remained probably.
Yeah.
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 Would you say it's like a very direct, I don't mean competitor, but direct. It's a festival for beers outside of Munich to actually join the Oktoberfest celebrations as well. I mean, Oktoberfest, everybody knows Oktoberfest, but when
Yes.
it comes to this kind of your festival, it's mostly breweries that are outside of
You know,
Munich.
we cannot participate
Yeah.
in the Oktoberfest, you know, because we are not brewing
Because you're not
in Munich.
Munich.
They won't let us,
Exactly.
yeah.
Now, I mean, of course, you know, it also dates back to former times where people, it was a long way to go to Munich. There was no trains or there was no, you know. So people created their own festivities.
So in fact, you see it in the region as well. If you go like 30 miles in any direction, you see 2 or 3 similar festivals. Probably not the same size, maybe smaller. Erdinger being one of the bigger ones already, but you see them all over Bavaria.
Even in Austria.
Even in Austria, yeah, correct. They put a tent up and they serve their beer to
Because when I was
consumers.
there last night, it was almost the same atmosphere, same kind of song, same kind of feeling as Oktoberfest
Yeah,
itself.
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm. So you've been to Oktoberfest?
Not really. I've been to the ones in Malaysia where the German embassy actually had.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
they had their own
You wanted
Pompa bank.
the only way telling me you're going to have one in Mumbai.
Yeah, we had one last year already.
Yeah.
What's similar to this?
It has a big tent similar to this one. Of course, it's not the same scale. It's actually a bit smaller. We had about 1,000 people a night, and it was much shorter in duration. It was like 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but it was still so popular. And also in terms of marketing it, we marketed it through the Facebook, through a Facebook site. And I think within 2 days or 3 days, it was all sold out. Because India is very much into Facebook and into social media, and they got to know of it. And actually what actually happened, when the festival started, the next day, the same people tried to come back and bring their friends, and unfortunately we had to turn many of them away because we didn't have enough space anymore. So this year is going to be bigger, and still going to take place in Mumbai, and on a slightly larger scale.
You had one in Hong Kong as well, right?
And we have one in Hong Kong. We're going to have one in Malaysia as well this year. We're working on that right now.
Singapore, China.
And Singapore, of course. China has already started. So Korea, we are thinking of one. We are doing one in Australia. So there's.
Do you see it as a direct competitor to Oktoberfest?
No.
It's very different. I think Oktoberfest is mostly a tourism affair.
Yeah.
6 million people. It's very, very big, right? But the kind of atmosphere that we create, or we like to create, we're working on creating, is very different. This is more, like you said, it's more private, more family.
Yeah, because I've spoken to a few people who've actually been to Oktoberfest and come to this fest as well.
Right. Yeah.
They said they like this one better because it's more intimate.
Yeah, and you know, also when you organize this abroad, you have to start small.
Yeah,
I mean, we just heard about the Beijing Oktoberfest that was done by one of the Munich organizers, and it was a complete flop. You know, because people, they are not used to this, and then you have to bring in the local brewers. You cannot just do it on your own. You always have to kind of, you know, be hospitable and try to, you know, if you are a guest, you are a guest in this
give
country.
some face to the local guys.
Yeah. And this is what we are always recommending, you know, to start small and then, you know, gradually grow and do it good, but, you know, to control.
Also within our means.
You have a presence in India?
Yeah.
You have a presence in China?
Yeah.
But among them, Singapore, at the moment now, Singapore is the biggest market. Okay.
Because the beer drinking market is more mature there.
Yeah, actually it's true.
China have a
so
lot of
China
local
and
brews.
India, so the problem I would think is the pricing.
You see, we are moving in a segment which is, if you look at the time scale, I think Singapore is a bit advanced in the sense that we have gone through this development phase already, where consumers are more sophisticated in their approach to new products. China is. I'm not saying that China will take as long. China will probably catch up very much faster, which will reflect in higher volume.
But I think also you have a lot more competitors in China. The local brews are very strong there as well.
Yeah, I think that is also one of the reasons. I mean, local brews are very competitive as well. Much more competitive, maybe, probably than Singapore.
And then, you know, it also depends how you can move in a country. Because India, for instance, is very difficult. You know, to go from one province to the other is not so easy. So
26 countries.
All those countries and different regulations and different registrations and so on. So that's all not really helpful.
Right.
And you don't plan to start a brewery somewhere in Asia because logistically it's going to be very difficult once the volume grows.
No, that's also one of the fortes of Erdinger, that there's a temptation, especially when you become very popular and very successful in relation in export business, to start brewing somewhere else. But it's also a clear decision by Mr. Brombach to just only keep brewing in Erding with the water in Erding, which is so important, and with the quality control that we can only guarantee in Erding.
What have been some of the marketing campaigns in Asia, and how different is it if you market your product in Asia and here in Germany?
In many Asian countries, or in many export countries for that matter, of course the knowledge or the consumers do not know the brand as well as they probably know it in Germany or in parts of Europe. So we have to start actually at a much lower level and a much more basic level to make people understand what we are all about. And that's why the campaigns are entirely different that we would run in an Asian country compared to a German market.
So what have been some of the most well-known campaigns that have been done so far?
I think one of them, probably one of the good, well-known campaigns, had to do with our festivals, with the Oktoberfest festivals.
Yeah, the beer fests. Then we are doing promotions, you know, always with focusing on the glass.
Yeah.
So all our marketing and advertising campaigns always show the glass. So we are really trying, you know, it's I mean here in Germany we would probably in the off trade we would do something, you know, like a keychain or whatever. But abroad we do like a 4 or 5 glasses, 5 bottles and a glass, or 2 bottles and a glass in a gift pack, you know, and then a little a flyer describing the product. Showing the pouring ritual, because just you cannot pour it like you have seen it like a regular beer. So the pouring ritual is very important because people abroad don't know. So I mean, all our brochures, flyers. Then we do concepts how to pour, how to do the installations for draft beer. I mean, all this is very basic. But very important, and we have to always try to make people understand who we are, where we are, privately owned, you know, high price, premium priced. All the beer comes from Erding. We do not brew under license, so it's these are all our key or core. Core messages, core information that we are trying to give. And then of course, I mean, we have like a beer garden concept, we have the Oktoberfest concept. I mean, this is what we really are trying to focus on.
Your largest export market is Europe, I mean, outside Germany.
Yeah,
outside Germany.
In terms of countries, we have 4 that are pretty equal. It's Italy, Switzerland, Austria and England. That's our big 4.
Big 4, yeah, correct.
England.
UK.
So after them when it comes to Asia, Pacific as a whole.
We're close, we're closing in, I think.
I mean, Asia as a whole,
it's already there, of course. I think Asia is already
Asia
among
as a whole is among them. But talking about single countries, it's like this.
What's been the hardest part marketing, trying to get people to drink wheat beer rather than a lager? How did you convince them to switch to wheat beer?
The funny thing actually is that sometimes people have the wrong perception about wheat beer, probably because they have tried other wheat beers before, or they have tried other beers that like to be called wheat beers, but they are not. So, and those beers usually have a very particular taste to it, and that's why you find a very common reaction if somebody has not tried, has not tasted Erdinger, they will say, no, I prefer a lager beer. And if we overcome that first hurdle and we make them indeed taste Erdinger beer the way it should be consumed from a nice glass with a pouring ritual and by the quality of itself, they will very often convert from lager beers or from other beers that they have tried to Erdinger, because Erdinger is very mild, it's very easy to drink. And that's actually probably the hardest part, to make them really try, to give them the opportunity to bring the product to them and to make them try, because once they do try, the rejection rate is almost not there.
Many wheat beers of this, you know, traditional style, when you smell, they have a very
intense,
kind of a hoppy, like a strong smell. And when you smell the Erdinger, it's completely different.
Yeah.
You know, it's fruity, it's kind of, encouraging to drink.
Yeah, correct.
It doesn't have this
It doesn't have
kind
a
of
very hoppy.
old, hoppy, and sometimes when there's too much hops and bitterness in the beer, the smell is kind of old.
Sour.
I can only
And sour.
old, sour. And I think this is one of our selling propositions, that the beer is not so bitter, does not have this a very typical Bavarian strong taste and smell. Also our color. Our color is pretty unique. There are a few that are trying to copy our colors, that they are permanently changing towards ours. But basically, the characteristics of this beer, I have to really tell you, is we don't have any problem in none of our countries.